good old video camera going.
Right on.
But starting off with the beginning, it was for me at least as an activist, uh, kind of being introduced to the whole Occupy thing as it was happening, which was of course on my TV screen, and just watching as the world was beginning to pay so much attention to this new Occupy movement. And as I initially watched it, my initial feelings were I was a skeptic.
Right.
Seeing it like, this isn't going to amount to anything. I don't know what this is going to do. I'm not really sure of these people's motivations or what have you, what have you. And then as it kind of kept going, my phone kept ringing and people were asking, hey, what are you going to do about this? Are you going to join in? Or, you see what's going on here? Because they were asking, not just myself, but many other people who were community activists in Boston, like how did they felt that this Occupy thing was going to impact them? Were they getting involved or what have you? And I remained skeptical until, a buddy of mine, Darren, who many people may know from the Occupy movement, actually encouraged me to come down and come down, just take a look. I expressed my skepticism to him as well. But then said, okay, let me go down. What harm could it take? I'll take a peek and see what happens.
See what's going on.
And then from that first time, there was a lot of things that were very good, and there were a lot of things that were immediately stuck out as kind of crazy. So from our very first foray down there, in an exploratory capacity, we saw, open drunkenness, the drug use. We saw some abusive behavior, certainly abusive language. And that was on, the very low spectrum in terms of, the worst things that could happen we saw. Then we saw a lot of great stuff. We saw a lot of people helping people. We saw some very knowledgeable people who seem to have very well-meaning and well-intended down there. Of course, we saw what I kind of refer to as like the soup kitchen kind of atmosphere that was happening.
Right. Food tent.
People getting fed at the food tent, and so there was a lot of good stuff that was going on. But it was from the very beginning, it was very kind of chaotic.
Yes.
And kind of how is this gonna sustain itself? How is this going to turn out? It could turn out well, or it could end in a bloody riot.
Well, it'll look that way sometimes too.
Exactly. And there were many instances there. Of course, security was always an issue. The treatment of women was an issue. Elders and so on and so forth. And as I said, with this other element of the underlying issues of the substance abuse, the so on and so forth, it just kind of made it very uncontrollable, and in an atmosphere with a group that admittedly said, we have no leaders,
Right.
there's no one that's accountable, so it was just very weird kind of to watch.
Right.
And then for a guy like me who is very, dot your I's and cross your T's, it just seemed too chaotic for my particular liking. But we stayed around and wanted to watch and see, how this thing would come out.
Right. And you're right about a lot of stuff down there. I mean, it was very chaotic in a lot of ways. Parts of that chaos I kind of liked because it could go anyway, in a positive nature too. Because I remember some things where, for example, on the first night, it was just a group getting together to kind of plan what they were gonna do, what they were, I guess, fed up with the world, and it spontaneously kind of ended up being a thing where they went across to the Federal Reserve building and had a little thing over there. Some things like that, I think were very, very, very primal, and I think that aspect of it might have been kind of good, but on some other levels, maybe some of the unorganization, with having so different, many different people in so many different areas trying to accomplish the same thing, but from so many different areas within even the camp. It lacked a little bit of organization at times, and I felt like when we were all down there that it was really a lot of focus on, after I believe it was October 11th when the first raids happened on camp, and that went out all over the world with the police beating veterans and the elderly people, stamping on the American flag and such. That image went out to everybody, and that was probably very embarrassing to the police department, which is their fault. And you've covered many things like that in the past too. I saw some work that you had done before Occupy started with some things over at Roxbury Community College. There was an incident, I believe, and you could probably describe it a lot better than I can because I'm going off memory from some YouTube videos that you had posted, I think. But there was a gentleman that had been basically physically brought out of there in a very rough way by the police.
Yeah, a young kid basically was a victim of police brutality on the campus of RCC, and as happens most times in our community, was the matter got investigated. The DA decided there was no wrongdoing here. All of those cops basically got off scot-free from that incident, and even so, later on, just several months ago, and actually Chris Ferrone from the Phoenix covered it. One of those cops was actually awarded from the Boston Police Department, not for that particular incident, but for other incidents. For doing whatever the best of his duty or what have you. As well as were some other officers awarded separately from him, who were also in part of some of the biggest racial incidents that have happened here in the city. The killing of Mark McMullen, another officer there, was awarded. He was awarded for that specific event. He was actually awarded for the killing of Mark McMullen. So we have seen some stuff like that, and yes, we have definitely been around here in Boston doing activism, doing organizing, well before the Occupy thing popped up or whatnot, and that was part of, I think, some of the difficulty in kind of visiting the whole occupation, because people who you've never seen before, who, once again, admittingly, have no leaders, have no accountability, have no track record in many cases, wanted you to abandon everything that you know and adopt this other method that is untried, untested, right. and off of the bat, just at the surface, as it was being explained to me, didn't make much sense. So that was problematic. There were some good things there, but as I was trying to speak to some of the people who were doing the racism, anti-racism, and all this type of stuff,
anti-everything.
Right.
I think it was a proposal in GA once where we were gonna save the water on one proposal. We were gonna save the air on some of that. It was just all this stuff that. Let's get down to core issues is where I was thinking. With the economic issue of, not Roe versus Wade, that's a whole other issue, but the Citizens United, which is a huge problem, which allows in politics for corporations, for foreign nationals, and for very rich people to donate unlimited amounts of money anonymously to political campaigns, which basically means that. Two things. Corporations are people. Number one came out of that. Number two, it meant that those with all the money in the world, more money than all the rest of us put together, the top 25% of the 1%, it means that their voices are much louder than yours, mine, anybody's in this country that votes.
What fascinates me oftentimes is that in the movements that are, quote unquote, going against these things, we often end up emulating some of the same behavior. So,
right.
That to me was problematic. So one thing, for instance, being down there when they say there's no leaders, no accountability, there's no, structure, there's no hierarchy, no one makes, the decisions, I found that logically flawed because clearly to me, there were decisions that were made. Somebody decided that we're all gonna do the finger thing, right?
All right.
That was somebody decided that, right? Somebody decided all that, right? There's nobody in charge here. It was very clear to me that white people were in charge. You know, there's no leaders. It was very clear to me that white people with penises were the leaders.
Right.
And it just on and on and on. All the things that they were saying, you know, that they're against or what have you, whether it, you know, whatever it was, it seemed to be manifested at some level within the movement itself, which I found troublesome.
Right.
And even more troubling than that was that if you attempted to bring that up, that you were then shunned because you were not in the Occupy Hive mentality, which to me at one point became very cult-like,
Right.
where you're just supposed to abandon everything and just accept this, you know, whatever it is, and just, you can't say anything bad about it. If you do, you're just, you know, you're not with the program. And it was very, you know, L. Ron Hubbardy.
Right.
And so, you know, I found those problems. And once again, as an activist, and then particularly, too, from my racial perspective and my cultural perspective, it was like, you have the nerve to be trying to talk about oppression and all this type of stuff, and what, I don't get a seat at the table,
Right.
you know, at a table where I'm looking at other people around who, by my note, and you know, and it's difficult when you get into the whole my boo-boo's bigger than your boo-boo game,
Right.
but clearly myself personally, and then my community collectively, we're dealing with issues that these people were not dealing with. Hence, you know, you could see some of the stuff that they chose to, some of the methods that they chose to use. So, for instance, we want to highlight, you know, that the banks are sucking the blood of the poor.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all going to dress as vampires, and we're going to walk down, you know, Main Street or whatever. Like,
Right.
you know, people in my community, that we don't think on that. Now, not to say that, you know, I mean, hey, do what you do. No one was trying to stop that.
Right.
But also, too, don't try to convince me that that is an actual way to organize, that is viable, that in any way did anything besides make you feel good and you had some fun and whatever, you got the chance to pull out your cool Dracula costume that you didn't use from Halloween or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Other than that, there was no purpose to that. And meanwhile, while you're doing that, you're walking by people who are really affected by this.
Right.
Or, you know, we're going to do a walk against hunger. And while you're doing the walk against hunger, you're actually stepping over hungry people.
Right.
You know, so it was just a really kind of surreal kind of mindset that took place in terms of the methodology and how they were attacking some of these issues that they were bringing up. Some of the issues I thought were frivolous, just, you know, in general, as you said, we're going to save the air, we're going to save the water.
Right.
Air and water are very important, by the way.
They are. I mean, the environmental issue is very
It's
important.
very
I'm
important.
not belittling that. Don't get me wrong.
And me either. But certainly the ways that it's going on, it's like, you know, if in order to enjoy air and water, you got to be alive, you know, to breathe it and drink
Absolutely.
it. So, you know, we kind of want to put a balance in places like my community, where the number one issue is, you know, mass incarceration, gun violence. These are not, you know, that's why you find in communities like mine, environmental issues are further down on the totem pole for people.
Right.
Because people are dealing with day-to-day issues of, how am I going to pay this rent? Is my kid going to make it home from school safe? Mm-hmm. You know, are there books in my kid's school when he goes there? You know what I mean? Certain things like that. And that's where I think that Occupy, certainly in Boston, because I can't speak to all the Occupies,
Right.
but certainly in Boston, you know, what I saw, you know, they missed the mark. They missed the mark, and there was a potential and an opportunity there to really, you know, make a real committed effort. And I think that a lot of that was wasted.
I think, in my mind, as I look back, I think a lot of that is based upon focus, because when you have a lot of different focuses, when we have like 200 focuses, and people argue about which ones to focus upon, it's kind of hard to get anything done sometimes. And I actually had a friend that did a study that narrowed it down to 20 issues, which sounds like a lot, but 20 issues that would possibly be passed by a GA or whatever, and that those would be acceptable by the large group based upon a survey that was done online and in person. And a lot of those had to do with, what, that point it's a little dated, but it had to do with Afghanistan and Iraq, getting the troops out. It had to do with financial things with the Fed, obviously, Citizens United, things like that. I think that by the time October 11th ran around, we all became kind of scared in camp. Or I was a day person that went down there. I didn't ever sleep down there because, honestly, there were so many people showing up every day that I felt guilty. If I had a bed on my own, I wasn't going to take a spot for somebody else just to say that I was down there. I mean, there were a certain amount of people, I think, in all the occupies that you saw that were going down there because they were going to get arrested to make it a little notch on their achievement list in their life or whatever, to like just more of a tourist kind of a thing. There were people there that were just there because it was like Bonnaroo or something in some levels. And I think that as numbers dwindled down, there was some infighting that happened that the whole world heard about. And I think at this point, we've dwindled down to a level where it is mostly actual activists, but there aren't as many people that are able to go out and actually do actions at this point. So what do we do? I guess we have the Boston Occupier, which you're familiar with as well, as a matter of I guess reaching out, that's what Occupy has at this point. Now, I know a little bit about Occupy the Hood. I know and I think that you had done something with regard to Chuck D as well, but Chuck D and some other people were very involved with it down in New York, and I think Chuck D had actually come up here as well once or twice, didn't he?
Well, I mean, I know Chuck D, personally,
Nice.
but I'm not aware of his involvement with Occupy the Hood. I know that nationally, he certainly may have been involved. I know that certainly, he would be the type of person to, speak and have an opinion on it. I'm not aware of anything. We certainly didn't do anything with him in Boston, per se. During that time, he did happen to come to Boston and spoke at UMass at an unrelated event. And myself and some other people went, to see him. But the thing with Occupy the Hood, and now I'm speaking of Occupy the Hood nationally, which is primarily Occupy the Hood New York, let's say. Occupy the Hood, and I'm still a little bit unclear of this story, but as from my own understanding, Occupy the Hood was basically started almost simultaneously by two different people. So you had Malik in New York, and you had Sister Ife in Detroit. Who may have uttered the phrase "Occupy the Hood" and put it into the atmosphere. So here in Boston, we had already heard that terminology, and certainly, the hood was terminology we were already familiar with, and it made sense. Occupy the Hood. We were also thinking and considering the term Blackupy, because we never really were comfortable with the term occupy itself. Occupy, particularly for black people, brown people, indigenous people, Native Americans, others, occupation has a very,
That's what white people did when they came over from Europe.
Exactly.
From Spain.
It's definitely tied in with colonization and whatnot, and that was one connotation of the word. And then the other was, if somebody says, "Hey, you're just occupying space there," see, it's almost like you're just sitting there, you're doing nothing. So both of those connotations we weren't really too happy with. But we got on board with it and tried to as the original Black Panthers say, seize the time. So we recognized that there was a moment here in history, and we didn't see a lot of people who looked like us involved, and the only way to correct that was for people like us to get involved. So we said we got to inject our own faces and put our own issues in there. And myself, I had no idea that it would be as difficult as it was. So, for instance, as you said, your friend was working on, the 20 issues that people would kind of, So, in that, I felt that in that, if I could magically transform myself into a white person, that I could show up at a GA and have a decent chance of getting whatever the crowd is in attendance at the particular moment when you're presenting something, that I could probably have a better chance of getting them to help me build a landing pad for the impending UFOs that are coming.
Right.
As a black person, You could not go down there. I don't think that there is an idea that you could present down there that they rocked with. I didn't see it. So that it was almost that is instantly, if you were a person of color, unless you were a person of color who was, and this we get into a lot of cultural and racial nuances. If you were the type of black or Latino person that does not make white people uncomfortable, then you were also accepted. If you were, whatever, maybe depending on the way you speak, the way you dress or look or carry yourself or what have you. But certainly I saw degrees of people that were accepted or not accepted based on how they looked. So if you were a black man, but you kind of talk like this, and hello, then you were a little bit more acceptable than a guy like me, from the hood, woo, 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 whatever, all that. East Indians seem to not have any problem.
Right.
And East Indian males in this society are seen as non-threatening, even though
they're imposing, non-threatening.
Even though they
seem like
they're brown,
right.
Even though they're brown, and in many cases even darker than me.
Right.
But less threatening. So it went with all this little nuances and cultural stigmas and stereotypes and da-da-da. And it was very interesting to see it all play out in this atmosphere that is supposed to be the atmosphere of the progressives.
Right.
So I would expect this, in the Tea Party. I didn't expect this with this is supposed to be the forward thinkers and all the people who are trying to get rid of all this isms, schisms and stuff. And I found it almost even more intensified there than I had seen it play out in other arenas in life. So it was very interesting to see. And with Occupy the Hood nationally, it was also interesting to see. The relationship in New York was much more pleasant than the relationship here was. Not to say it was perfect. There were, problems with Occupy Wall Street, just, as, logistical problems and everything else. There were problems with Occupy the Hood. Everybody got problems. But the two seemed to be able to communicate better, work better together. But here in Boston, and as we know the reputation of Boston, being this racist city, I, personally saw race played out here like nowhere else in the country. And maybe it's because, New York is different. It's the melting pot. It's, even the staunchest, whitest New York, Bensonhurst living person, they got to get on the train. They got to go around New York, and it's multicultural everywhere they go. Right. Boston is still very insulated. This neighborhood, these group of people stick to themselves, very insulated, very segregated. There's, an intellectual elitism that takes place here. Those folks who go to Harvard or, BU or BC versus those who don't, so on and so forth. And so much of the philosophy of, the Occupy thing here in Boston, once again, was coming out of primarily, I saw like kids from Harvard,
right,
who were, the gurus or whatever, even though you just turned 21, even though, you read, a couple of books on it and you might be studying it, but you have no applicable life experience or what have you. Right. And even though you're talking to people in many cases who do have this experience. So there was a whole bunch of stuff going on here that I think Boston was just did poorly. I think based on the history and the cultural and the racial dynamics of Boston that just were poorly done, that in places like New York or one of the champions of the Occupy movement was, the Bay Area. But the Bay Area is super progressive. And, not to say there aren't problems in the Bay, because clearly there are, but, you have a better track record of black people, white people, Latino people, Asian people, poor people working together better in areas like the Bay, like New York, like Philly, so on and so forth. And here in Boston, we just haven't busted that bubble yet, I don't think.
I think that the experiences of the people down in the Bay Area, I think you're talking about Oakland, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all watched those live streams, I think. And that was some of the ugliest things that I've ever seen in this country. I mean, that was a war zone. It looked like Iraq. I mean, I mean, when you saw people that had just gotten back from Afghanistan or from Iraq like 2 weeks ago, the one gentleman that somebody he tried to save somebody else, and then he got hit. He got hit in the head from a canister that got shot out or something. Screwed up his eye and stuff, and then they kept shooting stuff at him. It's a rubber bullet that got him, and then they kept shooting canisters at him, and that was ugly. It was ugly. So I think in that instance, you had a lot of people that just kind of banded together in maybe a very chaotic situation just for survival. The human element came into play, and at that level, I don't think there's any thought about what color somebody is, or what I would hope that would be the situation otherwise, but you're right, it doesn't seem to be. The only time that I ever saw really an opportunity between Occupy Boston and Occupy the Hood was during the Trayvon Martin thing that happened over in Harvard Square. And I think that both groups kind of mixed there a little bit, but I think everybody was just being kind of nice and didn't know quite how to react to each other at that point.
Yeah.
And to me, that was it was an opportunity, but unfortunately in very bad circumstances when that had happened. And I did feel down at Dewey Square that there was definitely something missing there. And you're right. I didn't see people from the various communities like Roxbury or Mattapan that would come up. They didn't. And I always felt that was missing. And on the night, now, do you want to talk about the night that you came up to GA? And
yeah,
because I came in kind of late in that, I saw something that was some kind of a thing, and something didn't work out very well. But you had come up and there was a proposal. You were going to go through the process you were talking about.
Exactly right. People had encouraged me, to do it, and I'm kind of an easy sell on that type of stuff. It's like, okay, listen, I don't think it'll work. But, 4 or 5 people are telling me try it. You know what? Doesn't hurt. Let's give it a shot.
Right.
And we're going to see now, are you right or was I right?
Right.
So, gave it a shot.
Right.
Did it as nice. I put on my nice face and everything and went up there and asked. And the proposal was this, and it was also, too, based on Occupy the Hood's relationship with Occupy Wall Street.
Right.
Because in New York, Occupy the Hood had asked Occupy Wall Street for various funding to do various projects, and not to say it was a walk in the park or something, but they were helpful. So I was encouraged to duplicate that process here in Boston. At the time, too, we're meeting with the people of color working group at the time, and blah blah blah. In any event, we have our own community newspaper. When I say we, there's several people that work with me, a team of youth, other folks, and I'm only reluctant in mentioning names only because, I'm the guy with the big mouth, so I'm the one that agreed to come here and speak and da 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 da. But I don't want to start rattling off, Joey Smith and Brian, whatever.
So I think you should. Because if there's credit to be given to people who work hard or activism.
Well, and that's too. That's if they want the credit. I was hoping too that we would have had a call-in thing. So I was hoping that other people would call in or what have you. But I'm just a little leery with that because whatever. The main thing is that one of the accusations was that I'm a one-man show.
Okay.
Anybody who saw, for instance, when I came down to Dewey, was that by myself? No, was never by myself.
I think you had 2 friends with you, right?
2 that you saw.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I just came in afterwards. Right. Something going on. I was like, dude, what's happening here? How can I help?
My point being is just that it was never a solo effort. When we did the big thing that we did down Dudley Square, when we had over 700 people, people saw the array of people that spoke from the podium, the people who were helping to organize and manage the crowd and whatnot. So the whole thing of this Jamarhl Crawford guy, he's a one-man show. That was like, how can you deny that when every time you see me, there's anywhere from 3 or 4 to 7, 8, 9, 10 people around me who are right there. You can touch them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But in any event, so we went down to the GA and we asked for $2,000, and the $2,000 was based on the fact that the Boston Occupier, which I think at that time was called Occupy Boston Globe or something, it was It was something.
Yeah, it was Occupy the Globe or something like that. I believe that. We talked about this a little bit. I need to look back at that stuff.
Right.
So I was under the impression that was started on a Kickstarter.
Yeah, it was
a thing. It was a separate.
It was a separate thing, but it was definitely supported and promoted via the GAs and this whole process and da 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 da. And people were enthusiastic about it.
I went down and handed them out. At South Station myself.
People were buzzing. Now, meanwhile, the Blackstonian, which is our, obviously the term Blackstonian, Black Bostonian, and basically serving the Black community, Latino communities of Boston and beyond. From anywhere from here to Springfield to Worcester to what have you, but also too. Just a community-based newspaper that had been in existence since 2002. Okay. All right, so we've put out, tens of thousands of issues. Numbers, pardon self.
Right.
A smaller amount of issues, and done so too around specific issues. Probably our most famous one in recent history is the one we put out around 3 strikes. Before that, we did one on safe homes and da 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 da. In order to, get our say in on these various issues that were affecting our community. So in any event, the $2,000 was asked for to put out a new edition of the Blackstonian that would, first of all, we generously offered Occupy Wall Street, a full page in there to state whatever their purpose, plans, whatever was. We offered another page for Occupy Boston. We offered a page for, Occupy the Hood National. And then we were going to fill the rest with local community information and da-da-da-da like we normally do. So that was one. And that would have cost probably around $1,100 to put out, like 10,000, whatever.
Right.
And then the other thing was we would have used the rest of the money for our food drive.
Okay.
And we were scoffed at.
Actually, I want to come back to that food drive in a little bit too.
Okay.
There's some YouTube videos that I think people should see out there about that I was very impressed with. But anyway,
thanks.
We'll come back to that in a few minutes. Now, Blackstonian. Now, how often does that come out? Is it just issue like if something happens?
Exactly. There's no, because we're, I'm not a nonprofit. We unlike the people that Occupy, if anybody worked on these funding campaigns, we certainly need that type of thing, because I've never seen somebody be able to start an internet, fundraising thing, and then next week it has $10,000, $20,000 in it. Oh God. If we knew how to do that, we really could make some change happen. We suck at fundraising. What we do is, we have events, we have people that we know, and people that we know donate money. And, we keep all these, in my house, I got an envelope for this, an envelope for that, an envelope for this, and it's all in there, and we never touch a penny, and, da-da-da-da. And I have several people in my community that I am accountable for who, can attest to the fact that these envelopes do exist. They've seen them, you know what I mean? Right. They've come, here, Jamarhl, take $5, put it in there, what have you. The events that we've done and so on and so forth, we raise money to then, do the food drive or, help somebody in need or what have you. But it's very organic, very grassroots, and no big, to do about it. No 501c3, none of that. But yeah, so when we do that, we're able to put out newspapers that, the purpose of the newspaper is not, for our personal shine or, to show off how, sarcastic and cute we are.
To get something done.
Is to get something done, to inform, educate the masses, to get them to move in a certain direction. Once again, something like, when Massachusetts was considering passing this 3 strikes thing, we've got 15,000 of these things. We flooded everywhere from Massachusetts, Worcester, Lynn, Lowell, New Bedford, Springfield. We were all over the place with this thing. Had community town hall forums, convened hundreds of people at each meeting, and we're really on the forefront, along with a lot of organizations, Prisoners Legal Services, the ACLU, National Lawyers Guild. It was like a coalition of like 30 groups, and we were going out there and informing the people to get a pushback. And because they had just snuck and sprung this whole 3 strikes on us, dare I say that without the outreach efforts that we did through the newspaper, through the website, through the town hall meetings that we convened in at least 6 or 7 different cities across the state, people would have not known. It still got passed, but there would have been no pushback. We at least got pushback. We got them to take stuff out. We got them to add, the stuff that we wanted in to kind of temper it, and, so on and so forth. We had, God knows how many times we were up at the State House talking to legislators and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And dare I say that without the efforts of, Blackstonian and others, it just... we wouldn't have had any defense. Right. It was like at least we got a couple of swings in before we got knocked out, and so that's kind of what we do. And then in the meantime, the food thing, which is that's like the least. When I say the least, that's the thing that takes the least amount of effort.
Right.
May pay off the greatest reward. Certainly feels good when we do it,
right.
But it takes the least amount of effort, the least amount of organization, blah, blah, blah. Takes nothing when you have a community meeting to have a box in the front and tell people via Twitter and email, hey, bring some canned goods when you come, or drop $1 in there or whatever, please help us out. We're trying to do this food drive. Or to call up a couple of local supermarkets or whatever, hey, we're looking for food for, needy people. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
So those type of efforts are the type of efforts that we, strive to engage in, and where we saw the best chance of partnership with something like Occupy, and
right.
why we were so disappointed that it just kind of never happened,
Which brings me up to the video that I watched that people should see. Now, where that video is on your YouTube channel, right?
Right. Now, my name is Jamarhl Crawford.
Right.
My name is spelled a little strange, Jamarhl. If you go on YouTube and search for Jamarhl Crawford, Jamarhl, you could probably just type that in. I'm the only guy that spells it like that in the world. And you can find me on YouTube. It's easy. There's a whole section there, because now we probably got about 8 or 9 videos of feeding people, the town hall meetings we've had,
right.
Stuff from like the Trayvon rally in Worcester, the one in Harvard, it's a lot of videos there where people, and that was the thing too about the accountability issue, because for us, like, you can see everything we're doing. It's there, it's real time.
Right.
Somebody comes up to me, if they come up to me tonight from Occupy, and say, hey, Jamarhl, I gave you $20 back in November of 2011. What did you do with it? I can literally tell them.
There you go.
I can literally tell them what happened to their little funky little $20.
Right.
And that's a major. And to do it with a free conscience, where I know that it wasn't like, oh, you gave 20, Jamarhl Crawford got 10, and then we used the other 10 over here to really do some good. No. If you gave 20, all 20 of your dollars went to whatever you said you wanted to go for. And literally, like I said to the envelope things, see, there's some people that give us money and say, hey, I'm giving you this money, I'm donating this money because I want you to continue doing this newspaper. That money goes into the newspaper fund. Somebody give me some money and say, we want you to take this to feed some people. That goes into the food fund. Okay. And the two, the twain shall never meet. We don't commingle funds over here.
Where could people pick up the, obviously there's going to be an online version, but where could people pick up when it does come out, the Blackstonian, where can they pick it up at?
When we do it, it's all over. And in our community, there's a couple of staple places. So, whenever we do it, you're always going to be able to find it at Nubian Notion down Dudley, which is a staple in our community for over 40 years, from the 60s. Staple in the community. Everybody in my community knows about Nubian Notion. It'll be at places like Frugal Bookstore in the Martin Luther King Boulevard Mall, Roxbury Mall, which is the only black-owned bookstore in Boston.
It is?
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's
right. And there's other stores, for instance, like a Nubian Notion, that also sells books, but this is the only dedicated, complete bookstore. That's the primary thing they sell. So it's not, they don't sell chips and soda in the newspaper. They sell books, and that's the only black bookstore in Boston. And once again, what a sad state of affairs in Boston.
It is.
It's only one black-owned bookstore. We only have one black-owned restaurant in Boston, which is Daryl's Corner Bar and Grill, another place you can find it. There's a lot of stuff like that, little things that, nobody really would think about.
That's the place up by Washington Park, isn't it?
No. It's by Mass Ave, Mass and Columbus. It's by the other park where people play tennis at. I don't even know the name of that park over there, but yeah, Mass and Columbus. Daryl's Corner Bar and Grill. Great place to hang out, socialize. We've done events there, and as I said, you'll be able to find the Blackstonian there. So what we do is generally we partner with long-standing, established, Black, Latino-owned businesses, churches. We always leave some in some churches. The Roxbury Y, the Dorchester Y, the Boys and Girls Club, places like that our people frequent, particularly the youth, organizations and groups and whatnot. We also give some to other organizations. So, for instance, like you probably aware of Boston Workers Alliance, things like that. We'll leave a stack there, and they'll distribute some to their people, and So, oftentimes it's just a big collaborative effort. To get it out there, so people can definitely do that. We haven't put out a print edition. We're actually about to put one out on the diversity in the city of Boston. So look for that in the next couple of weeks to a month.
Nice.
And obviously all the time, online, blackstonian.com, certainly.
Okay. Now, when we talked the other day, you had mentioned that something about you were looking to leave the you touched on this a little bit ago, but leave the Occupy name behind.
Right.
And you were looking to kind of delve into something a little bit new.
Right. Now, so the thing is, okay, number one, we're having a community meeting on April the 8th.
Where at?
It'll be at the Dudley Library, Dudley Square. Indoors, obviously, at this point we're unsure of the weather, so we chose to do it indoors.
I used to live about 2 blocks from there. I used to go there when my internet went out a couple times. I used to go there and use the computers there.
There you go. It's a great place to use the internet, great place to get your behind beat at chess. We got some of the best chess players in the city over there. Oh, my God.
Right next to the courthouse, too.
Yeah, exactly. It really is a true sense of a community library. I love the spot. It really has a lot of events. Being a library, people use it for free, but there's, chess there. There's music lessons for kids. It really is a hub in our community, and we like to use it for that reason. So April 8th, we're going to have it there. I don't have the time right now, but I will get that to you. And that meeting will be about this. It'll be about, the history of Occupy the Hood Boston, what we've done since people have seen us in 2011. Seen us only because that's when they were looking for it, right? We've been here all the time, before, during, after. We'll continue to do so. Let people know what we've been doing, and then the new direction. And the new direction is this. Once again, we were never comfortable with the Occupy term. We certainly had problems with the structure and the governance of how things were done, getting consensus, the finger waving, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So we were just never comfortable with it. Now, what we figured out, basically, in our own studies of activism, one of the great organizers of our time was named Stokely Carmichael, was his government name, who many people may know by his African name, Kwame Ture. And Kwame Ture said, when asked, what is the most important thing that people can do and what should people be focused on? And he said, organize, organize, organize. So we are moving away from the term occupy, and we are embracing what we've been doing and what we always should have been focused on, which is organizing.
Okay.
So instead of Occupy the Hood Boston, we are now Organize the Hood Boston.
All right.
And we're going to continue to do what we're doing under an umbrella. We hope that others join us, because while we did not have the best of experiences with Occupy, as we've said then, we'll continue to say, we want all hands on deck. So anybody out there who wants to do some good, wants to be in a structure that there is actually accountability, that there is, some foundational principles, that there is a playbook that we go by, we know what the plan and the goal is, so on and so forth. We encourage them to get involved. And regardless of race, gender, all that type of stuff that was going on, if you're a woman, you're going to get respected and Organize the Hood.
Right.
Your voice is important. You're not going to get abused, harassed, belittled, or any of that, so on and so forth. The only, criteria that we have is that, we ask that you please don't be crazy. So if you're coming,
Right.
as long as you are sane and in your right mind, we can work with you.
Yeah.
All right. And so that's basically what we're moving on to, Organize the Hood. We're continuing, feeding people through our Feed the Hood, Feed the People program. We're continuing feeding people through our Fill the Fridge program, Fill Your Fridge program. We're continuing to do our community town hall forums on various subjects. We have one coming up this Saturday, actually, on the sagging pants at Dudley Library, from 2 to 5 p.m. this Saturday, the 16th, on the whole sagging pants controversy and the criminalization of our youth. There was another YouTube video, which you could see on the page as well, where there were some people who were insinuating that, there may be arrests and fines and jail time for young men who engage in this whole sagging the pants thing. And we're saying, that's ridiculous, and we're not seeking to further criminalize.
That's silly.
It's extremely silly, but unfortunately it's also extremely real. So we have to inform our people to the the reality or the falsehood of this, so that they can be better informed, basically. So that's one of the town hall forums we're doing. Obviously as well, I mentioned April 8th, we're having the Occupy the Hood. We call it the birth of a movement, our big announcement. We'll have a big community discussion on, everything Occupy the Hood. And in the meantime, on March 23rd, we are participating in what is the 5th annual FTP organization. FTP is out of Atlanta, New York. They're all over the place. FTP, which stands for Feed the People, or Free the Prisoners. There's a number of ways to break down the acronym. But in any event, this is the 5th annual Feed the People weekend on March 23rd. So Boston is joining in those efforts, and we'll continue, what we've been doing in terms of feeding people. We'll cook some food. We'll distribute it to homeless people in the streets, needy people. We'll also, do bagged food and deliver groceries to needy families that we have and shelters that we already have identified. Pardon me. And we will, participate in that way in the 5th annual Feed the People weekend. So,
all good things.
Exactly. So, that's just a couple of the things that are going on, immediately, so that once again people can see the track record and the work. And that's the stuff you see outside of the other stuff that we're doing, like working on legislation and so on and so forth, to try to, make some of these laws a little bit more fair.
As far as Organize the Hood, what needs do you have beyond the obvious fundraising and food, things like that you were talking about? What needs do you have organizationally that those that might be listening now or listening later would be able to be like, hey, I can do this? What are you looking for as far as hard to find stuff?
One is a base of operations. In Roxbury, there is an actual, what I believe is a conspiracy to limit the amounts of places that are available for organizers to organize. So
there's no place like E5 here? Not
at all. Not in Roxbury.
Okay.
So in order to gain access or get to some of these places, an activist or organizer from Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan often finds themselves having to go to Cambridge, go to downtown Boston, go to JP, so on and so forth. And I believe, once again, that it's done on purpose so that the most disenfranchised people, the people who are most oppressed and most hurting, don't have anywhere to, affect any change to that. So that's one. We need a place to just operate out of.
Okay.
And that's for everything from meetings or, what have you, if we wanted to start our own radio broadcast or, that type of thing, but also as well for some of these big events. Last summer, we were privileged we brought the legendary group, The Last Poets, here.
Nice.
Now, I'm blessed, and as I said, I know people like that, Chuck D, is blessed. And when they come through Boston, oftentimes they're coming through at venues that have no connection to the community. And it's just a economic endeavor, and there's no money going back. What we want to do is be able to do events that are, either entertainment based, fun, just a good old fashioned party, brings people out, but also too lectures, film showings that will also be able to generate money. But you know that if I say we're going to show a film and, we want $10, that that at the end, that $10 that's going is not just getting some promoter to drive around in a Benz or something,
right.
that it's going back to do these other things like feed people or organization and going right to the community. Right. So we want to create vehicles that are sustainable but are purely about giving back. Right. So that the money we make is the money we generate for this thing, so that thing can be sustainable, and then people don't actually always have to beg with a handout and say, can you donate $1, donate $1, donate $1, right. But that we would actually be able to produce products, services, events that will generate money on their own, right. Where people are going to come, you're going to be entertained, you're going to have a great time, but you also are assured that money is going towards a great cause. So we need stuff like that, and then we need good old-fashioned, manpower for right. Folks who are, if you're a computer programmer or technology, if you can type 1,000 words a minute, if whatever, if you know how to write grants, if you whatever your talent is. Certainly there's a way that we can find a way to right. Plug you in to to work. We do a lot of stuff with graphic and web design, once again trying to blast out images, inform and engage people. So basically it's really up to the people in terms of what they have to contribute, and then any good organizer, when presented with a contribution, is going to find a place for that. So that's how we try to do it.
Where would people in those positions or that have those abilities, where would they contact you or whomever as far as getting involved then they obviously could show up to the meeting,
right.
But is there an email address or
something?
The
email. The website is blackstonian.com, BlackStonian.com. Once again, like Black Bostonian, smushed together, blackstonian.com. The email is blackstonian.com@gmail.com. All right. And the phone number is 617-297-7721. 617-297-7721. You can text, you can call, what have you. I beg of thee, please don't call me at 6 o'clock in the morning. I beg of thee, please don't call me at 3 o'clock in the morning. Use your common sense, people, and give me a call at, decent hours with decent people. Right, exactly. All right. And that's really it. People can get in where they fit in and get involved in any way they see fit. We're glad to take it. And, we definitely need all hands on deck, because the one thing about organizing is there's always going to be work.
There always is. There's always just way more work than there are hours in the day. And that's something that
exactly.
At this radio station, I have found out. There's so much to be done, and there's never enough hours, and you can wear yourself thin doing that, and you end up, the people that you organize with, you end up frazzled. You end up getting to a point to where you need a couple days break in order to kind of recharge yourself, and then to be able to do it again. But it's a never-ending, it's a never-ending thing, and it's the one thing that I've learned about all of this is that it's not something that you say, okay, I'm going to become an activist and tomorrow something's going to be done. It's a long haul. It's a marathon. Nothing good is easy, obviously, but it takes a while to really accomplish anything. And for those that do want to get involved, I definitely recommend getting involved with that. And I hope that some people can listen to the show and they can help out. I hope that that's something that they can do.
Hope. And one more thing too, because I know we're almost done. The other thing is too, anybody who's listening to that who is any kind of remnant and was there during the whole Occupy Boston, one thing that I'd ask, a personal thing for me, right. I was so offended when I was called a thief and everything else by the Occupy general thing, and the hundreds of emails that I got where I was just berated, and once again questioning my motivations and da-da-da-da. So one thing that I've also wanted, that I don't know if it's possible or not, but I would damn sure like an apology from Occupy Boston, because now that we're having, and this is the reason I came here tonight and have even continued to talk about this,
right? Because
now here we are, a year and a half later or what have you, and everything that I thought, all the bad things that I thought could happen, all did happen. I was concerned, oh, these people aren't committed. They're not going to stick with it. This is fly by night. It's just the sexy thing right now. And now I can say, where are they now? Where are they?
I think a lot of us can say that. Those of us that are left at this point can say that because, well, it's good in a way, too. I can say this because there's a lot of people that got in the way of doing something productive that aren't here now. So now there's not enough of us, but on the other hand, we're actually able to do something with the few of us that do exist.
Well, I tell you what, I would sure like a printed apology, not just to me personally, although that's certainly be in there since I was personally attacked, but to just the general treatment of not only Occupy the Hood, but people of color in general, the people of color working group, the treatment of women that I've seen, and I think that should be on the front page of the next Boston Occupier. I mean, I really do think that whatever email groups, chat rooms, or whatever is still going on, that it's something that really does need to be discussed and examined so that if this thing does reemerge, it's not duplicated. Because, sometimes in families when these tragedies happen, we don't want to talk about it because it was uncomfortable and painful, but that we have to do it.
That's the thing, and that's the one thing that I've been thinking for the last 15 minutes. It's like, thank God that there's at least some kind of discussion going on with regard to this, and God knows what comes out of it, but I hope something positive comes out of it because Lord knows, I mean, hopefully something starts that's more positive than what's happened before.
Yes, indeed.
And that's why I'm involved with this whole thing.
Yes, indeed.
So, anyway, this has been Jamarhl Crawford. I want to thank you so very much for coming down here.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope you come back again, to be honest with you.
All right. It'd be my great pleasure.
All right. And again, when is the meeting for Organize the Hood?
Organize the Hood will be on April 8th.
April 8th.
And once again, please go to the website, blackstonian.com, because all of this info is there. The April 8th meeting, the Feed the People weekend on March 23rd, the meeting this Saturday on Sagging Pants. So you can get all this information at blackstonian.com. We got a lot of stuff coming up. Stay tuned. One thing is if you stay tuned with us, you certainly will not be bored.
That's true. That's true. Well, that's going to about do it for tonight's show. This is Occupied Nation on OBR.FM. I wanted to mention one thing. We played Bobby Bishop's music a little bit earlier tonight from Stepper's Heaven. And he sent me a text. I asked him if he had any gigs coming up. He's going to be playing at tomorrow night at Napper Tandy's in Norwood, Thursday the 21st at John Harvard's in Harvard Square. So, he's somebody that has helped us out at OBR.FM in a fundraiser that we had last fall over in Cambridge, and help him out. Go out and see him play. Bobby's a great guy. Stepper's Heaven, great music. So check them out. This has been Occupied Nation. Peace, love, and prosperity. Thank you very much.
All right.
And that should be, maybe hit this button right here. Oops.